Hello, my love, and welcome back to another episode of the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. We are back with the Join Jessica series, and today I am sharing a client interview with you with my client, Yolanda. We had such a beautiful conversation. If you are a coach or aspiring coach, this is a conversation that is a must listen for you. We talked about so many good, juicy topics that I know will be so relevant for you, even if you're not at the point of success where Yolanda and I are within our businesses. These conversations are conversations that are going to be so beneficial for you to hear now and moving forward in your business. So before I move into talking more about Yolanda and sharing the conversation that her and I had with you, I want to remind you what is going on in my world as of right now. So we are currently deep in the Black Friday sales. So if you missed the episodes where I was talking about a week of Black Friday, that is last Wednesday's episode. I believe it's number 197. You can go and give that a listen. We are currently here on Wednesday where we have the Standard on sale. The Standard is a brand new program that is coming in 2023 for the woman who wants to improve the standard that she has for herself in her life. It is so easy for us to show up at our best for other people, but it's generally for most women at the expense of their own well-being. We put others before ourselves and then we end up on the back burner. I want to teach you how to raise the standard that you have for yourself. Big focuses inside of this course are going to be relationship with food, relationship with your body, and mindset. We're going to be talking a lot about leaving yo-yo dieting behind and creating a standard for how you show up in your life so that you can feel your best now and always. But this program is going to be so much more than just shifting out of yo-yo dieting and creating a standard for yourself around relationship with food. We are going to talk about raising the standard for the woman that you are in your life. We're going to talk about how you can become somebody who shows up just as powerfully, if not more powerfully, for herself than she does for others, because you deserve that. You have to raise the standard. That is a term that I learned from Tony Robbins many, many years ago. And it got me reflecting on the standard that I had for myself in my life. And a big piece of this is what we believe we are worthy of having and who we believe we are worthy of being for ourselves. If we don't believe that we are worthy of holding ourselves to a higher standard, we're not going to do it. So we are going to be talking a lot about the relationship that you have with yourself, the beliefs that you have about yourself, your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, the relationship that you have with boundaries and putting other people before yourself. I have a feeling that this is going to be a new signature program for me in 2023, which just makes me very, very excited. There is so much that I have learned over the last 5 years that I really want to package up to help the woman in my world who wants to step into the next level of being for herself, not just so she can achieve more in her life, but so that she can be as happy as she wants to be. Because as you will hear from this conversation that Yolanda and I have on today's interview, things don't make us happy. More money doesn't make us happy. More success doesn't really make us happy. It is all about the relationship that we have with ourselves and how we feel within ourselves. So that's what's going on for the week of Black Friday today. Wednesday is the Standard on sale. Tomorrow, Thursday, which is Thanksgiving Day, we are not putting out any new offers. And Friday, we have the Create Joy product sale. So we're putting all of the Create Joy products on sale for you using code Black Friday. That sale will become active on Friday. If you missed out on any of the previous sales, I'm just going to give you a little hint here on the podcast. Keep your eyes peeled to Instagram this weekend because we might be doing something special and bringing a couple of things back. And I'm really tempted to introduce a new program for 2023 on Monday. I am ready to do it. I am so ready to do it. I'm going to create a course on starting a podcast because there are so many women in my world who ask me all of the time, Jessica, help. I want to create a podcast. I want to create a podcast that converts to sales. How do I do it? And clearly I have done that. We are inches away from 300,000 downloads here on the podcast, 200 episodes. This is one of the places that converts more sales for me than anywhere else. And I am ready to create a course on starting a podcast or growing your current podcast. I'm thinking that we might put that on sale on Cyber Monday. No pinky promises here, but in case that's something that interests you, you might want to keep your eyes peeled on my Instagram on Monday. The only other thing that I have to talk about right now is we moved Committed AF to next week. So it is happening Monday and Wednesday of next week. If you're currently registered, last masterclass of the year, it's $20.23 if you want to get inside. Inside of that masterclass, I'm going to be teaching you how to stay committed to yourself and your goals throughout the remainder of the year and into 2023. I'll put the link for that in the show notes of this episode. You can also find the link to the Black Friday sales inside of the show notes of this episode. I think that is all. Allow me to introduce Yolanda to you. She's going to introduce herself after we move into the conversation here on the podcast, but I love Yolanda deeply. Yolanda, if you're listening, I love you so much. Her and I connected inside of a mastermind that I am still currently in, and we just became really close. She ended up hiring me, which she will share her experience around doing that. She ended up hiring me earlier this year as a private client, and we worked together a lot on her mindset and happiness in her life, because even though she is a very successful woman who makes multiple six figures a year, $40,000, $50,000 per month, she was still struggling with comparison, not feeling the way that she wanted to feel in her life, because as you hear me talk about all of the time, more things does not make you a happier person. If you don't master the mind and the way that you think, you can and forever will fall into the trap of not feeling good enough about yourself, because there will always be someone doing better than you. So how do you powerfully own where you are, love who you are and where you are in your life, while continuing to show up consistently to create the success that you want? And inside of today's conversation with Yolanda, you will hear us talk about her experience in working with me. She is an incredible human. I'm going to put the link to her podcast and her Instagram in the show notes of this episode. 10 out of 10 recommend that you go and connect with her. She is just a beautiful soul, such a kind human. We are both very heart-centered, which I care so much about. I really love connecting with women, especially in the coaching industry, who really give a shit about people, because it is very sad that a lot of people are getting into this industry thinking they can make a quick buck, and they're really missing out on the heart of it. And that is one of the things that Yolanda hired me for, is because she knows my heart is in the right place and I care very deeply for my clients. I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. I love you to absolute pieces. Tomorrow's episode of the Queen of Pep Talks podcast is a fire morning message that you are going to need to hear, especially if you are headed to a family dinner on Thanksgiving. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you on the next episode of the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. See ya. Hello, you guys. I am so excited. As I mentioned, as I prefaced this episode, I have the beautiful Yolanda here on today's podcast episode. Yolanda and I met inside of a mastermind that we were in together with my current coach, Stephanie, her current coach, Stephanie, as well. And I would say pretty immediately, I liked her. And if you know anything about me, I'm not the type of person who opens myself up to having relationships with a lot of other people. When you're in a mastermind and there are 15, 20 people inside, it's hard to open energetically and like emotionally for all of those people to come close to you. But Yolanda was one of the beautiful humans who I adore so much, who I became pretty close with. And she eventually hired me, and we worked together one-on-one for, I think, about a month. And today she's going to be talking about who she is, what she does, and her experience working with me. And I'm very excited because there are so many really juicy topics that I think we're going to dive into in this conversation that will be so beneficial for the women in my audience, and helping them understand it is never going to be about the things outside of you or the accomplishments or goals that make you happy in your life. It really is an internal job. So Yolanda, I would love for you to introduce yourself, share who you are and what you do. Let my audience know what you're all about.
Hey, everyone. Well, first of all, Jessica, thank you so much for having me. I have been so excited about this interview like all week. It's just an honor. So I am Yolanda Boyarin. I am a sales and business coach for spiritual entrepreneurs, and I infuse human design with, the energetics of human design with sales and marketing, because sales is my background. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell my audience, for those who don't know, I think for me, at least, human design is something that I only really started learning about and hearing about when I came into like being a coach in the online space, because a lot of people talk about, like we've talked about, and like you helped me with, how to use my human design to leverage the way that I show up in my business and in my life. Can you just share a little bit about what human design is so people can have an understanding of that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So, a lot of people mistake human design for a personality test, and a personality test can be changed based on how you feel day to day. And human design, it remains constant no matter, how you're feeling each day. And what it combines is four different things. It combines the astrology of when you were born. It combines your chakra centers or energy centers, I Ching, and Kabbalah. It's not a religion, but it's the energetic makeup of who you are, how you operate, and, your thought process, as well as the way that you naturally show up without even thinking about things. And so what I find when I read this chart for most people is they're just mind blown. They're like, yeah, that's me. But I also try to suppress that part of me because, my parents said, don't do this, or society says you can only do it this way. And that's what winds up putting us out of alignment. That's what winds up making things feel hard for us. So what I do is I guide people in their sales process through how they're naturally meant to show up. And it's no surprise that after you really understand and give yourself permission to be who you are energetically and naturally, before opinions and thoughts came into the picture, it's not a surprise that most people wind up having massive success with their sales.
Yeah. And it's so interesting when I was just listening to you speak, like not only the things that we're taught like in childhood and in our upbringing from our parents and our teachers and people that we are taught by and led by, but also once we become, especially coaches in the online space, we hire coaches who teach us how to do things. And sometimes, even though their business model is working for them, we get frustrated because we're like, well, why is this not working for me? But we don't realize that we're actually trying to do things that are so out of alignment with our natural gifts and what feels actually really good for us in the way that we show up.
Oh, 1000%. And then it's like a remembering, right? Of like, oh yeah, okay, this was working for me, but now I'm trying to conform to this standard because I think that's what success looks like.
Yes. Oh my, I feel like I didn't anticipate the conversation to go here, but I think this is so important, especially for coaches who are listening to this, who are especially newer, I would say, to building businesses. But even if you're not newer and you maybe hired a new coach because you really admire their business model or the way that they show up, how easy is it to kind of not trust yourself and lose yourself in trying to mimic who your coach is being? We see it all the time. I've seen it in myself in trying to mimic my own coaches. I see it in my clients and them trying to mimic me. And sometimes it's like, we really have to pause and say, like, do I really want to be doing this? Is this really how I want to say things? Is this how I want to show up? Or am I doing it just because I believe that it's like the fastest path to success, which is what most people are chasing?
Yeah. And it's like, you have to think when you come from a force energy, right? If it's not you, it's a force energy. I always use the example of when I go to the furniture store with Yuri. We wanted to remodel our house. And so we went to the furniture store and we got there, and you can tell when somebody is trying to force something. Oh, let me follow you. Oh, let me help you. Oh, and it was like, I don't know what I want. Can I have a minute to look? Right. And so we left there because we felt it was forced and pushed, and it's like that needy energy. And then we went to another place and the guy was like, hey, this is a big furniture store. Here's my card. Give me a call on my cell phone and I'll come find you. And it's like, there's a difference in that force versus relaxed and confident energy.
100%. It's like knowing that what you have to offer when you are selling and marketing yourself and your offers, knowing that what you have is so valuable for your audience that it's not like you need this. It's like, I know there's value in this. If you believe this is something that is going to benefit your life, I just trust that you're going to come into my world and hire me to help you achieve what it is that you want. They know when you walked in the door for that furniture, you're there because you want to shop for furniture. So let you shop and do your thing. And when you're ready to buy, you'll buy.
Yeah, 1000%. It's a more relaxed energy and more, I'd say more in the feminine flow, right? You're still in your masculine of like, you're doing things, you're putting things into motion, but it's like you said, instead of mimicking what someone else is saying, you're really asking yourself, is this how I want to show up? Is this me and my relaxed and confident, fully aligned energy?
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. You did a human design reading for me, and there were so many mind-blowing moments where it's like, oh my gosh, like, how would you even know this about me? Like, and we had known each other for a couple of months at that point, but like the things that you were like saying about my personality, I'm like, well, yeah, that's true, but I try and hide that from the world. So like, how do you know that about me?
I hear that all the time. And then people are like, did you research me? No, I don't have time to research people. It's literally written in your chart.
That's so funny. So why don't you talk a little bit about, how many years have you been in business, in your coaching business?
This is 3 years now.
3 years. Okay. So we're around the same timeline of starting our businesses. So we met inside of the mastermind that we were in. And then you ultimately, I think it was when you left that mastermind, you hired me for a month of private coaching. Can you talk a little bit about, and I would love for you to first like brag about your own success, because you have a very successful business that I think a lot of coaches would aspire to and kill to be at the level that you are at in your coaching business. Can you talk about kind of where you were in your business and why you made the decision to hire me, what it was that you were really feeling? I remember from my experience, like why you hired me, but I'd love for you to share in your own words, kind of what drew you to wanting to work with me to improve the way that you felt in your business.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm a sales and business coach. So, the interesting thing is obviously like a strategy is a big piece of what I do. But I work with spiritual entrepreneurs, and so I do want people to understand that strategy with unaligned energy is just going back to that needy, that force, that push. And so I felt like even though I'm making a lot of money, even though I know the strategy, I also know the importance of your mindset. And I also know the importance of how you feel and how you view things. And here's the thing, you and I were actually talking about this a little bit before we hopped on to record this. Most people are always looking for the thing outside of them. I don't feel good. So what is the thing that I need to say or the thing that I need to do that's going to attract the most people? And the reality is it's never the thing that you say or that you do. I say that strategy is leverage. And so when I came to you, I was in a place of deep comparison. I think masterminds can be very powerful, but I had changed so much of my business this year. Mm-hmm. It felt like I was beginning again. It felt like I was starting from scratch. And yes, I make a lot of money, but that money, here's the thing, the human brain thrives on progress. And my brain was not seeing progress. So it was seeing failure. Mm-hmm. And even though logically I knew I'm doing well, there's nothing to complain about, internally, that's not how I felt. So I was like, okay, I don't trust a whole lot of people. It's so funny that you said that, you were instantly drawn to me, because in the mastermind, I felt the same with you. I don't normally trust many people, and I don't open up vulnerably to many people. But I was like, Jessica is someone I trust. And she's someone that I know that I can be vulnerable with without feeling judged, without feeling like, oh, you have this thought. Okay, that's stupid. Just move on, right? It's like I was looking for that pure support of, okay, you have this thought. You're human. That's normal. Okay, now how do we shift past this? How do we move through this? Mm-hmm. And so hiring you, I hired you because I had already had a prior commitment, or the only reason I hired you for 1 month is because I had already had a prior commitment that I made at the beginning of the year. And I was like, I need someone to get my head in the game. Mm-hmm. And so the work that we did, I don't remember, everything, but I do remember, like, if I felt down, I could just pick up the phone and vox you a message and say, hey, Jess, this is how I'm feeling. There was no explanation needed of, yes, I know this is not logical. It was just pure support. And I think that's the biggest thing that most people fail to realize within building a business, being an entrepreneur, or just any change in life that you're trying to make.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That's a conversation that I've been having more and more often with my clients. Is I think in the beginning of wanting to do something new, there's a desire to hire a coach for like, teach me how and fix my problems, right? Like, tell me what I need to do to get to where I want to be. But there comes a point in your journey for especially building a business where it's less about like, teach me how to do something, because there comes a point where not that we know everything, but we know how to create the success. And really it's like, you only need to know the strategy, and sure, there's like the refining and the cleaning up and the mastering and like stepping into maybe a next level and how you show up and do those things. But coaching for me at this point in my life is less about like, teach me how to do something, teach me how to solve a problem. And it's more like, I want to be supported by someone who understands what I am going through and gives me a safe space to talk about those things. Because how easy is it for us to get in our head and let thoughts just like continue to spiral? And then before we know it, we're down this rabbit hole and we feel like shit because we've created a story that's not even true. When it's like, we could have just come and had this conversation, talked about what we were feeling, realized it wasn't true, and created a way around it so that we could move forward and keep moving.
Oh my gosh. I just had this conversation with a client yesterday about this.
Yeah.
And, because people often ask coaches, like my client was like, hey, someone was asking me, why would I continue with you? And here's my thought process with this. If I want abs, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm also going to change probably some of my eating behaviors, right? I get my abs. Okay, do I stop going to the gym? Do I stop eating,
Yeah.
the way that I did to get the abs? No, I don't. And so when you think about it, the mindset work that you're doing, it's like, imagine that you're traveling. I live in Austin. So let's say I wanted to drive to Vegas, right? Like imagine that you're traveling on the road to Vegas and then all of a sudden you realize that you get off on the wrong path. Do you just keep going down the wrong path and get further and further and further away from Vegas? Or do you realize, oh, hey, like I got off path. Now it's time to get back on path.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like coaching does is like you said, it's like that detour back onto, okay, this is where I was.
Yeah.
I don't need to be sidetracked anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a place to come home to where you can be supported and led back on the path that's actually going to take you where you want to be. I think such a beautiful analogy of like, but so many people get into that mindset of like, oh, I already screwed up. I'm a failure now. So why don't I just keep going down this path that's making me feel even worse about myself and taking me further away from where it is that I actually want to be, when in that moment, yes, it's hard to make the decision to turn around and get back on path, but it's like you'll actually then lead yourself back to where it is that you want to go instead of just moving further and further away from that.
Yeah, it would be like, imagine if you got into an argument with a friend. Like, do you just keep digging the hole
Literally.
deeper, throwing, more fire on it? Or do you just say, hey, okay, we got off track. Like, let's fix this.
Yep, 100%, 100%. I think about, and I'm sure we talked about this in our time together, but I think about especially with my mindset, my relationship with myself and the way I show up in my life. I often refer it for myself to my relationship with my husband. And like, if I wanted to improve the way that I felt, and this was happening between me and another person, like how would I, navigate that in another relationship? Because it's so much easier to put things into perspective when we have someone else's feelings top of mind. But for some reason for ourselves, it's like, oh, who cares how I feel? I'll just keep doing this to myself, even though I know it hurts. But it's like, we would never do that to a partner or a best friend or you know what I mean? Like we would honor the way that they feel and show up for them in a way that feels really good. And if we can learn to do that for ourselves, we're going to lead such happier lives.
Yeah, it's interesting how easy it is to put others first versus ourselves, right? And I know one of the things that you and I talked about a lot during our time together was like the all or nothing thinking.
Yeah.
Right? It's like sabotaging your own feelings, sabotaging the way that you feel, sabotaging the way that, and it's like, why do we do that? Why would we are stuck with ourselves for our entire lives. Like this is the relationship that matters the most. Why not put that first and then also, have great relationships outside of there?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you, in your experience, has it been difficult for you having a successful business and holding a lot of clients and doing so much for the world in your business? Have you found it difficult to prioritize the relationship that you have with yourself because it's easy to put yourself on the back burner while you're being of service of other people?
Okay, so this is a deep question. I don't think that I get caught up in the sense of not putting myself first because I do have very firm boundaries. Like one of the things that I tell my clients is like, standards, boundaries, expectations. Those are the three things that I always honor. And so I think that I have a really good throat chakra. It's very defined. It's really easy for me to speak up. But I also think that I tend to get lost in my business at times because, and you and I talked about this, I have a childhood trauma that has me seeking to fill that void and that feeling through the amount of money that I make.
Yeah.
And so that question is kind of twofold. It's like, no, I have really strong boundaries, so I don't go down that rabbit hole. But then I also don't have really strong boundaries with this need for, to fill this void from what I experienced.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I think I may have talked about it on one of my previous podcasts, but there's an assumption that is often made when I share that I am happy in my life and that I feel good in my life and I'm confident in my body and in who I am, I've had a lot of people make this assumption that the reason that I feel this way is because of how much money I make. And for me, it's like, I understand that it's one of those, like, you can't know until you know type of things, because for me, before I was making the amount of money that I am, I too had the belief that more money would make me a happier person. And I think it's really hard sometimes to actually like fully debunk beliefs for ourselves until we get in a position where we have what we thought would be the thing that made us so happy. Can we talk about, because this was one of the things that we talked about a lot during our time together, because we both were simultaneously experiencing dips in income from 50, 60K months down to like 30, 40K months. And we're both like, what the fuck is going on? But I had done a lot of work around detaching like my expectation of feeling good from the amount of money that I made. And I think that was something that we were able to talk about and work with you on a lot. But can you talk about just your experience in making more money and how it's impacted your level of happiness and fulfillment within yourself in your life?
Yeah. So money does not equal happiness. Let me just go ahead and first put that out there. It is a lot of inner work. And that was a lot of the work that you and I were doing together, because again, I just said like the brain thrives on progress, and my brain was seeing, no, this is a failure. Even though I'm making money that most people would love to make, it was like, I was still seeing I'm not good enough. Right. And so, one thing that I learned, like I talk about this sometimes, like my uncle is the one who brought me to spirituality, which is like what, deeply rooted me into that. He would tell me all the time, I'm going to manifest the lottery. I'm going to manifest the lottery.
I love this story. I can't believe I didn't know this until we started working together. I'm excited that you're sharing it.
He manifested a $42 million lottery win, and he was always miserable. He was always miserable. Like, it doesn't matter what you can buy. It matters how fulfilled you are. And so I know that my life's journey, this is also written in my human design chart and my natal chart. My life's journey is that I'm meant to be successful, but my biggest work is working on trusting myself and honoring myself despite the money.
Yeah.
So I think that whatever you think that, more money is going to bring, I think new levels, new devils, right? So it's like, I was just talking about this on my podcast recently. When I was selling real estate, I was making about $250,000 to $400,000 a year, a lot of money as a 25-year-old. And I had a client who was making $400,000 a year. She lived in Singapore, and she flew back and forth, and she would sell this tech thing to these big companies. And she was like complaining that she wanted more. And I remember saying to myself, if I can consistently make $400,000 a year, I would be happy. Now I make more than that. And I'm like, if I could just make $1 million a year, I'm going to be happy. Mm-hmm. It's just, we have that when I do this, then I'll be happy. But what we don't realize is that we're putting off our own happiness now, because where energy goes, energy flows. So if we're always putting it to something in the future, we're not nurturing the person that we are today, and we're not nurturing the things that we have right now. That, and this, my son attempted suicide numerous times, and that completely changed my world. Mm-hmm. I went from loving luxury things to like repelling everything because I thought, oh, that makes me a bad person, to then now balancing my money mindset out. So money definitely does not bring you happiness.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think, to a certain degree, obviously, when you can pay your bills and have food on the table without being stressed, like to a certain level, yes, it makes a huge impact on your life. But I think it's really easy for people to think, oh, she's happy in her life because she has fill in the blank. And then that's really easy justification of like, why I can't be happy in my life because I don't have it. We look at other people and the things that they have and think, well, she feels the way she feels because of that. When it's like, actually, it's the inner work that she is doing alongside of, like you said, the progress. And something that came up for me, and I don't think that we ever talked about this when we were working together, but I know in the online space with coaches, it's really easy to monitor like our level of progress by the amount of money that we're making, as if that's the only thing that is like worth progressing. Like the only way that I see progress is if my income is jumping from month to month, when it's like, actually, there are so many other things that we could look around and see, like, how do I feel in my business? Is that progress? How am I showing up in my fitness? Is that progress? How am I showing up in my relationship with food and my mindset and my happiness and my boundaries and my communication? Like so many other areas to monitor progress and see progress. But for some reason, probably because it's what most people are talking about, is like the progress is only seen and valued in how much money we're making.
So 2 things about this whole conversation. I love this. So when I was in real estate, I used to I was hired by home builders to increase their sales. And I'm really phenomenal at sales. So there was always like a bidding war of who was going to hire me. And there was this one builder I worked for, and he had a lower cost home. He didn't put any fancy things in it, like on the inside. He would just put cute little things like a cute mosaic on your kitchen backsplash, or the cute bathtub that wasn't very expensive, but looked like it was expensive. And then this other builder hired me, and they were a luxury home builder. And so they did like special spacing in between the 2x4s, and then they would do special insulation, and they would do special windows. Like it was like they went above and beyond. And then they always wondered, why are his houses selling and our houses are not? And I had to explain to them, like, people buy what they can see. Mm-hmm. And so in the coaching industry, you are being marketed to based on what you can see, which is the amount of money that somebody is making. Because if I said, I am happy on top of the world and I'm making X amount of dollars a month, you would not pay attention to the first part of that conversation. You would pay attention to, she's making X amount of dollars per month. Therefore, you would then equate that to happiness, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said, like at the beginning of that statement, I am Mexican. I grew up in a family that struggle was normal. My mom worked 2 and 3 jobs as a single mom. I never got to see my mom. My sister, who's 12 years older than me, was the one raising me when my mom was at work at night. And my grandparents were the ones taking me to and from school. When I tell you I grew up in a 2-bedroom townhouse with 7 people in it, like I had no evidence of what was actually possible. So you were saying, like, people say, oh, that's why she's successful. That's why she's happy. That'll never work for me. I had no evidence of that in my family, and I went out and created it. I also became a mom at the age of 17 and lived in low income apartments and literally had no food. And so Yuri and I wound up having Kool-Aid and ramen noodles in our pantry. I remember my mom came to my house one day and was like, why is there no food in your refrigerator? And I was like, let's go, Mom. So we need, I had to go somewhere. And it's like, you cannot use whatever circumstance you are in as evidence of what is possible in your future.
100%. And, it's such a, like, I feel like I could talk about this kind of stuff forever. I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation for the people in my audience. We want evidence of what is possible for ourselves, but also having that evidence of what is possible also very quickly can create so much comparison that we freeze and we don't take action because we're like, well, why in the world would I do it when blah, 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 blah has already done it, or she's a million steps ahead of me and here I am on day one, and how am I going to create that? It's so nice that we have access to so much evidence of what is possible as a coach in the online space, but also we have to be so careful. And this is why our mindset is so important. And one of the things that you and I worked on is, how do we make sure that we're staying in our own lane and not falling victim to comparing ourselves to every other person who is steps ahead of us or who is making more money? Because there will forever be someone who is more successful than me. Like forever, there will be someone who is more successful than you, prettier than you, smarter than you, has more money than you, bigger house, better husband, nicer car. Like that's just the reality of life. It's like, am I going to live in this trap of I'm not good enough because she has better? Or am I going to say like, oh, look at what she created, proof that I can create something similar, but it has to be my version of success. And it's so easy for coaches to get lost in wanting things for themselves that they never even wanted before, just because they think other people having it makes them happy. So it's going to make me happy too.
My husband and I have this conversation about marriage all the time because Um, I have people, my husband and I have an amazing marriage. Like we've been together since I was 16, he was 18. And I think I've gotten the response of, oh, it's because, you've known each other for so long. And it's like, no, I know people who are married for 20 something years, just like us, and they hate each other. And the thing is, like, my husband is perfect for me. He is the perfect match for me. But when people say, oh, it's because you have Yuri or it's like, we have to realize what's perfect for us is not perfect for everybody else. I know that his sense of humor would not go over well with a majority of people that make those comments to me, because I know that they've made comments about his sense of humor, or I know that the things that he finds easy about me, like, I know I'm a difficult person, right? I'm like, I want it this way. I want to do it this way. And he's like, go with the flow, and loves that, right? I wouldn't be the perfect match for a guy who wants someone who's go with the flow, because that's just not me. Yeah. So we have to take in consideration, what is the perfect scenario for us and not the perfect scenario for what someone else is marketing and selling to us. That's a completely different thing.
100%. And also checking your expectations in terms of like how quickly you think things are going to happen for yourself in any area of your life. So easy to see someone making $1 million a month and think, oh, I should be there. But like, we don't know what happened behind the scenes for that person to get there, how much time invested, how much money invested, how many years they've been showing up and doing this. And it's just, comparison literally will rob you from feeling the joy that you deserve in your life. And the thing is there's always going to be someone doing better for you to compare yourself to. And if you fall into the trap of doing it now, you'll be doing it forever, because you'll be making $50, $60, $70, $80,000 a month and still think, oh, this isn't good enough because someone else is making six figures or multiple six figures a month. When it's like, do you want to rob yourself of the life that you deserve to experience because you're so focused on what other people have? Like, don't fall into that trap now, because if you do it now, you'll be doing it forever.
I mean, you do know, because we talked about this, but I had stopped celebrating my income because I remember using the exact words, oh, this is such small potatoes compared to so-and-so, compared to so-and-so. And again, it's just, it doesn't matter what someone else is doing. It's like, if you can just see how perfect your situation is right now for you, the things that you have gone through, the things that you are growing through, it's providing some level of perspective and shifting you into a higher level of yourself and celebrating every piece of that. Celebrating every piece of that.
Yeah. I think that when we're unwilling to, I talk a lot about this with my business clients, because a lot of them are in places where they're really just wanting their first 10K month, but they're so ashamed to own where they are right now, because like you said, like it pales in comparison to what the next person is doing. When we fail to realize, so many of us were only focused on who's ahead of us. And we sometimes need to turn around and take a look back and be like, well, damn, there's millions of people back here who would kill to have started their business and know what they're doing and have a brand like me and make 5K a month and have 4 one-on-one clients, whatever it is. Like, where you are right now, no matter what level you're at, is inspiring for someone who has yet to get to where you are. And when you don't acknowledge that and you're unwilling to own that, you're robbing them of the opportunity of being inspired and seeing what's possible and getting to this level, because you're ashamed that you're not where you think you're supposed to be.
This makes me think of when I was 21, my husband and I bought our first home. And when we bought that, I had been on this savings spree, and I saved $8,000, and it was in my savings account. And I felt like I was on top of the world. And I remember having a conversation with my dad. And I was like, if I could just get to $25,000 in my savings account, like, I would feel so good. And I don't say this in a bragging way, but now if I saw $25,000 in my savings account, I would freak out, right? And so it's like, you have to celebrate every piece of you. You have to celebrate every part of the journey. If your goal was to buy a brand new car because you've only bought used cars before, and you go out and you buy a brand new Toyota Camry, are you going to look at your Camry and say, well, shit, it's not a Ferrari, so fuck it. I don't like it anymore. No, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to hear you saying these things, because I know that you know them. And I know that when we started working together, you logically knew them, but so much of it emotionally was like, you weren't able to feel that way for yourself. And the thing as a coach that makes it really hard is like, we know this and we coach our clients on it, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't ever still struggle with it. Like a lot of the things that you and I talked about and we worked on for you, I had just gone through like 3 to 6 months prior in really helping myself get through those things because I was in a very similar place. And it's like, even though we know things logically, sometimes we just need the emotional support, someone to be a sounding board and someone to like validate what we're feeling, make it normal for us and help us over that hump so we don't spiral out of control in it.
The brain is a very powerful thing, and it will have you believing stories that are so unrealistic. And even though logically okay, this doesn't make any sense, Yolanda. Why are you thinking this? You still cannot pull the emotion and the energy out of it until you see it from a different perspective. Because the way that I explain it to my clients is like, you're one track mind, like you're focused on this one thing versus your coach is above and taking in the 360-degree angle and showing you all of the things. Like I remember telling you something about something wasn't working. And then you were like, Yolanda, it's working. Look at the evidence. And it's like, oh yeah, it is, but it's not working the way that I want to. Right. And so it's
Exactly.
like your brain, again, it's the most powerful thing ever. And I just think that you should exercise that muscle daily and have
Absolutely.
your thoughts and beliefs challenged.
Yeah, absolutely. And have someone who can help you do that because it's really difficult to challenge things for yourself. You can do it, but when there's not a sounding board there for you to feel safe and being able to say like, well, yeah, I see this logically, but I still don't feel that within myself, having someone to talk that through with is literally priceless.
Yeah. And do you know, it's like when I started real estate, like, again, I had no example of wealth and success in my family. Nobody had their own businesses, nothing. When I started real estate, I remember my mom saying, but your husband makes such great money. Why would you want to go do that? And it's like, I could have leaned into that belief and, and stayed there and said, oh, my husband makes great money. I don't need to do this. But it's harder to actually challenge that. So whether it's someone else's belief or even your own belief, it is actually harder to challenge that and to go away. I always call it crabs in a bucket. Have you heard that story?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I don't know what they call them, crab fishermen. That's what I'm going to refer to. They go out, they catch the crabs, they put the buckets on the boat. And if they put one crab in the bucket, the crab will always find its way out. If they fill the bucket to the top to where it's like overflowing with crabs to where it looks like they're going to fall off, the crabs will never leave the bucket because the other crabs start pulling it back in, thinking they're pulling it back to safety.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, first of all, you have to watch out for what's out there from other people, but also your own mind is doing that to you too. It's like, no, come back to safety. Come back to safety.
100%. Yeah, 100%. We want to stay safe. And the way that we stay safe is giving into the beliefs that we have and like listening to them because it feels, even though a lot of times the beliefs that we have make us so unhappy and they keep us stuck, it's comfortable because it's familiar and people crave familiarity and will choose that 10 times over doing something that feels challenging, new, and uncomfortable.
There's a quote that I use all the time. People prefer familiar hells over unknown heavens.
Absolutely. 100%. It's so true. And it's sad. It makes me sad because people will never get to experience the life that they really want because they're so willing to stay stuck in the familiar reality that they're living in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, the mind is a powerful thing. It will have you believing, even when you get the courage and you're like, yes, I know this is it. Then all of a sudden the mind starts showing you all of the fake reasons why it won't work out. Right. And so that's why I continue to invest in coaching, is because I know that my mind has a thought and I know that that thought is creating a self-imposed limit. And someone else from the outside is looking at it like, are you kidding me? That's a hurdle. We just jump over that.
Exactly. Helping you break through that limitation that you have set for yourself because you're so capable of doing it, but you yourself, you're going to want to stay there.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So I know we have to wrap in a couple of minutes because you have somewhere to be. I would love if you would share if there's someone in my audience right now who maybe is massively successful in their business in terms of like the outward facing success, but maybe is feeling like they're struggling with comparison, or they're feeling like good is never good enough, or they're waiting for that next milestone to be the thing that's going to make them happy. And they're thinking, maybe Jessica is a coach that can help ground me and be that safe space where I can come and be supported, but she's on the fence of making that investment. What would you say to her?
Oh my gosh, 1000%. Just hire the woman, like give her your credit card, give her your money right now. No, but in all seriousness, I remember sending you a message that truly came from my heart during our work together. And I remember it said something to the effect of, Jessica, I have never been this open and vulnerable with anybody before. I cannot express to you the amount of support that I felt from you as a coach. And it wasn't necessarily like, it went beyond the client coach relationship. It felt like, no, this is really somebody who cares about my well-being. This is really somebody who cares about me as a human and is not seeing me as a number or, money in their pocket. And I think that, nowadays, I think that so many people are jumping on this coaching bandwagon because of the financial piece of it versus, really wanting to support. And I'm not speaking for everybody. I just know that I have worked with a lot of coaches, and I will say, like, I loved our time together, and I know that I will be back once this commitment is done.
I appreciate you saying that. I love you, first of all, so much. Our time together it was powerful for me. I believe as equally as powerful as it was for you. I just adored our conversations, and I could see the impact that our time together was making on you. And that means so much to me. And I do think that in a world where now coaching is like the popular thing to do, and people think it's a fast path to like a lot of wealth, which it can be, you can make a lot of money. I hate to think about the fact that people are missing what the heart and soul of this really is. And it's actually giving a fuck about people and like seeing your clients as more than money in your bank account and like clients on your roster. It's like seeing the human and really caring about them. And that's one of the things, especially for my clients who I work with in the business space, I really pride myself on being a coach who sees the entire human, not just like what they need in terms of strategy to make more money. Like I really want to make sure that every woman who comes into my world feels safe and heard and seen and protected, and knows that being with me is a place to be so open and vulnerable about everything that you're going through, business related or not, because I care about your well-being. And I know that the only way that my clients can be happy in their lives and businesses is if they're actually a happy and fulfilled human behind that business.
Yeah. When I think back to our time together, it's like, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but I have tried therapy numerous times, and it's not my thing, right?
Me either. It doesn't feel I never have gotten what I hoped I would have gotten from it. I've gotten so much more from coaching.
Yeah, me too. Same thing. So it's like when I go into therapy, it's almost like you feel like you're being analyzed, right? And it's like, you feel like if I say the wrong thing, what are they going to try to put me on meds? Are they going to, you know what I mean? And it's like, when I think back to our time, there was no mask. It was like, you didn't have the mask on. I didn't have the mask on. It was just like, wow, this is what genuine connection feels like. So
thank you for saying that. I appreciate you. I'm so happy that you came on. I know that this conversation is going to be so powerful. And I really want to encourage the women in my audience, even if this conversation feels beyond where you are right now, I hope that you take every word of it to heart, because there will come a time where you are massively successful financially in your business, and you start looking around and wondering, like, why am I not as happy as I thought I was going to be? Much like so many of the women in my world think a smaller body is going to be the key to happiness. There is nothing outside of you that is going to bring you the happiness and joy and fulfillment that you are craving in your life. It is your job to create that. And in order to feel that way, you really do have to master the way you're thinking.
Yeah, 1000%. It's so easy to look outside of us. So tell me the strategy, or tell me the food plan, tell me the exercise plan, right? And it's so much deeper.
It's so much deeper. It really is about the relationship that we have with ourselves, the perspectives that we choose, and the way that we decide to think and show up for ourselves and who we're being to ourselves in our lives.
Yeah, 1000%.
Thank you so much for coming on. I loved this conversation. I'm so appreciative of you. So happy to know you. I think you're incredible. And I'm so grateful that you're in my world.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you.
I love you too. All right, you guys, I'm going to put all of the ways that you can connect with Yolanda in the show notes of this episode. 10 out of 10 recommend following her, connecting with her, go listen to her podcast. And if you're interested in human design and how it can benefit you, not just in your business, but even in your life, reach out to her and let her give you a human design reading. I think it'll change your life the way that it changed mine. All right, you guys, I love you. And I'll talk to you on the next episode of the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. See ya.